Hello, and welcome to the Red Clay Roadrunner.
All right, so today we're actually going to be talking about Hardie Backer board. It is utilized with pottery for a myriad of reasons, actually, and it's pretty cool. Hardie Backer board is a cement board, so it's to help absorb water, prevent mold, things like that, which makes sense when you're thinking about utilizing it for pottery, as we have a lot of things that have water in them. Obviously, clay has water in it, but you're also utilizing a lot of water. Like when you're throwing on the wheel, you're adding even more water to your clay. So there needs to be a way to absorb that water and even help with the drying process as well as the reclaim process. But I also use it for a wedging board, and that was the main reason I got it in the first place, was for a wedging board. I have heard more recently that if your clay is in the bag, like you're cutting it right out of the bag for the first time, then you don't actually have to wedge, which I have been doing a little bit because I get tired of wedging all the time. And I haven't really noticed an issue with it at this point, but also I'm a pretty new beginner, so what I notice may not be much compared to someone who's been doing this a long time. Actually, talking about the wedging board itself though, when you're wedging clay, you're just pressing it into a surface, right? And rolling it over and over again. But when you do it with a canvas drop cloth, there's opportunities for dust, and dust is unsafe with pottery. Now, the canvas works great. It will absorb any water that you're putting off, and it will help mix your clay. I will say that the canvas also creates a pattern on your clay, which is easy to remove. You can just use a rib and smooth it out, but it's easy to move around. Obviously, you can just cut a big slice or whatever, put it out on the table, and you can move on from there. But with the Hardie Backer board, it's just an easy way to wedge on. It's still movable. I made my pieces 2 feet by 2 feet, so they're pretty big, but that means that they can fit a lot of clay on them, but also that they're still movable, easy for me to move, and they're fairly easy to store as well when I'm not using them. So with the Hardie Backer board, like I said, I've cut it into 2 by 2 squares for my wedging board. And the reason why I have 2 wedging boards is because I learned the hard way that if you have a dark clay and then you roll a light clay on it, the light clay is no longer white clay. So I have a light wedging board and a dark wedging board. So I can do both clays with that because I do use both clays. If you only use one clay, or you only use 4 different types of red clay, then you probably just need one wedging board. You can get it from a local hardware store. Like I got mine from Lowe's, and so I'm sure it's available at Home Depot, wherever your local store is. They should have some sort of Hardie Backer board or cement board. Now, I do want to say that I had to go to the outdoor lumber yard to get that board. So I was walking around the store for like 15 to 20 minutes trying to find the backer board, but it is outside in the lumber yard, which means that you pay for it inside the store, and then you take your receipt and you drive to the back of the store, find your whatever you're looking for, but in this case, the cement board. You pull the cement board, you load it yourself, and then as you're driving out, someone is sitting at like the gate that you drive through to check and make sure that your receipts shows what you got and that you got what you needed. So just so you know, that's kind of the process on what to expect with that. Not something I had ever done before, so I just wanted to give you a heads up that that's kind of what that looks like and what that entails. Now, the Hardie Backer board comes in a few different sizes. It comes in, I think, 3 by 5 and then maybe 5 by 8, and that's feet. So 3 by 5 feet and 5 by 8 feet. And then it also comes in different thicknesses. So it comes in a 1/2 inch and a 1/4 inch. What I have is a 1/2 inch. So I just got the thicker one for now, and then I figured if I wanted more, I could get the 1/4 inch later if I needed it. The 1/2 inch has been fine. It's not too heavy or anything. I will say that it's probably easier to cut, which I will talk about as well, because that's a pretty big pain in the butt. So that might be something to consider if you're not confident that you'll be able to get it cut on your own. Now, when I'm talking about cutting, a lot of stuff on the internet, most people were like, oh, you just score it and then you're good. So that's what I did. I utilized a box knife and I scored it a bunch of times and it was so hard to cut. So just be aware that it will take multiple scores, strong cuts with your box blade, and then most likely a very dull box blade after that. Just know that that's going to happen. And then even with that, it still wasn't cutting or breaking. It had been scored, but it wasn't breaking apart yet. Just find a pole of some kind and put it next to the score line and then step on it, and it broke that way. So it was easy that way. And you can do that by yourself too, which is really nice. So that's something also to just note, that it is harder than you think. And there's probably like a saw or a cutoff wheel that you could utilize that would probably be way easier. So one thing with the Hardie Backer is that I saw an article online. I'll link that article to this video, but she talks about utilizing the Hardie Backer board and kind of all the different ways that she uses it and how great it is. So that was my main inspiration. So with that, she had also mentioned drawing on them to make sure that you cleaned them so you could actually see those designs instead of just letting them get dirtier and dirtier all the time. And I loved that idea. So I went ahead and drew designs on both of my wedging boards. I haven't drawn any designs on the rest of the boards. Found some designs online and then drew up a sketch in Procreate, and then sent it to my computer and projected it onto the wall, and then put my backer board up there, traced it out with a Sharpie. I will say that the Sharpie does come off on your clay. At least for me, that's what I've experienced. And I know that Sharpie will burn off in the kiln, and it really hasn't been an issue at all. will roll out a slab, and then when I lift it up, I see that there's some black lines on it. So maybe just a heads up that that is possible and that you will most likely see that. So with that, I got 2 wedging boards that are both 2 feet by 2 feet, so really big boards. And then I also have a couple of strips that are left over that are probably 18 inches tall and then maybe 2.5 feet long. But I'm utilizing those as drying shelves on my shelving unit. So I'll show that as well, and then kind of what I have left. I will say, from a drying standpoint, the Hardie Backer board does a great job of drying, which can be good and can be bad. I haven't noticed cracks yet utilizing it as a drying board, but I will say it does dry, and it dries quickly. So if your pieces are drying and you want them to dry slowly, probably wrap them in something, and probably don't put them on the backer board, I would say. But once you put them on, they are drying, like no doubt about it. But the other piece with that is when you're rolling out a slab, if you're working like, let's say you're hand building, so I would recommend cutting out every piece that you need initially and then moving that clay off of the Hardie Backer board, or just utilize your wedging board to wedge or to roll out, and then go to the next surface that you have that doesn't pull all that moisture out. I have seen recommendations that you just spray the board before you roll out. I feel like that gets really messy. The clay will stick to it for me usually, and so I don't have a lot of success with that. And then also I have sprayed it down or even sponged it down, and it dries super fast. So just know too that you either need to work fast or you need to change to a different surface based on kind of what you're working with, or based on how dry your clay is, because it could be that my clay is just more dry and not a big deal. Okay, I think that is everything that I have to say about cement boards. It's probably not, but thanks for joining me, and catch you next time.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.